Hi everyone, welcome back to Melotech TV, and today we're going to look at challenge number 9, which involves around tax and masking policies. We have looked around tax on our previous video, which I do believe is challenge number 7. Just to recap, tax or object tagging in Snowflake is a label or an identifier, right, that can be assigned to any Snowflake object. So when we say object tagging, it's used to organize and categorize data objects, pretty much providing additional context or information about them. Now, looking at the new concept in Snowflake, which is called masking policies, they refer to a security feature, right, that is used to restrict or mask sensitive data based on defined rules. So they are often applied on column level. So suppose we have a column called credit card numbers, right? So for example, if you're storing credit card numbers, what they do is to leave out the last 4 digits and they mask the first few characters with an X symbol, right? So this type of masking is called partial masking. Depends on the rules you define. You can keep the last 4 digits, or if you do not want to expose your credit card numbers at all, you can do something called full masking. So partial masking means only showing fewer characters and mask the rest of the characters, whereas full masking is masking the whole, um, everything, right? Literally every characters. So why something like this is very important or crucial to the businesses is because first, it will support privacy regulations and protects sensitive information from unauthorized access. So in Snowflake, if an analyst role is to get to see your data in read-only mode, they will only see masked data within sensitive columns such as social security number or credit card numbers. Other roles, however, may see either partial masked data or full masked data depending on the responsibility of the role. So if you scroll down to the challenge, look at this picture here, right? It says use role account admin and I want to see data to be masked table. So as an account admin, this screenshot here, this picture, I won't be able to see the first names, I won't be able to see the last names, but I can see the hero name, for example, right? So this is an example of masking. So if you switch to account admin, you won't be able to see the first name, last name, because this is fully masked as an asterisk, right? But I'll be able to see the hero name. Depending on, um, you know, the rules you've defined and the responsibility of the role, there are some roles that can see the data, that can be able to see the first name, last name, or they be able to see only first name but not last name, for example. It just really depends on the business logic, right? And the rules you have defined. So looking into the story, so it says here, it's not just bad guys that need to guard the secret. Superheroes are our first line of defense against those evildoers, so we really need to protect information. Running a superhero organization, however, is a big job, so we got a lot of people that have access to our systems, and we need to make sure that the true identity of our heroes is never revealed. HR is advocating for a more personal touch to our business, though, and has requested that some staff should be able to see the first names of the superheroes to connect on a more basic level. Higher up should still be able to see everything. But the constant changing roles with an organization, we really like something that's dynamic and can handle roles that haven't been created yet. So looking into this, so first what I do is, look in the story. It's just really a story or like a description for you to understand what's going on, right? What's the challenge, right? So looking into the challenge bit, this is the most important step that we need to understand. It says here, with the use of tags and masking, we want to mask the first name and last name columns from our data to be masked tables. So we want the following. It says the default user that has access can only see the hero name data unmasked. Okay. Role for one can only see hero name and first name. Role for two can see the contents of the whole table. The used mask policy should not use a role checking feature. Current role equals etc. Okay. So if you read something like this, so this is basically giving you conditions, right? So okay, the default user, so for example, it can be account admin or whatever, has access. That has access can only see the hero name data unmasked. So if you scroll to the top, similar to this, account admin can only see the hero name, whereas the account admin cannot see first name and last name, right? Okay, role 1 can only see the hero name first name, so that means if I say use role for one and use the same query here, select star from data to be masked, I'll be able to see first name and hero name, but I won't be able to see last name. I think that's what it says, right? Can only see hero name first name, right? And when I switch to the role for 2, I'll be able to see everything, can see the contents of the whole table. And then at the end, it has given us a little challenge saying should not use a role checking feature. So something like this here is something called a role mapping policy. So we have conditional masking, right, within the masking policy. So you can configure to mask the data appropriately. So we're going to see something like this in Snowflake in a second. So before doing that, before having creating your own role mapping policies, best to write down something like this. This description is very important, right? So if you are attempting this challenge, please make sure you copy and paste this bit here, right? So you know, okay, how you want to build your role mapping policy, right? So I'm gonna do this quickly. Just wanna do here, copy and paste into my Snowflake instance, something like this. Just comment this one out. So this is your role mapping policy, right? This bit here is going to be a role mapping policy because it has given us some set of description or conditional masking that we need to configure in our code, right? So going back to the challenge, so the startup code. Okay, I can see bunch of table creations here. So a bunch of insert statements and of course the role creation, right? So what I'm gonna do is first copy and paste that onto my Snowflake instance. So I'm gonna do something like this. Just going back to the challenge, we have the results. Oh, it says here, right? So if you use account admin, similar to the one above, right? The screenshot here. So I won't be able to see the first name, last name, right? So let me just enlarge the picture. So use role account admin. So I won't be able to see the first name and last name, but I'll be able to see the hero name, right? Next, for one, I'll be able to see the first name and hero name, but not the last name. And for two, right? You can see it's use role for two, first name, last name, hero name. So I'll be able to see the whole contents of the data. Okay then, so going back to this, I think, yeah, that's about it, right? Now, what we're going to do is going back to Snowflake. So we have got this bit here commented out, so we need this in order to create our role masking policy. What I'm going to do is create the table. So I'm just going to create a table called data to be masked. Okay, and I'm going to execute the insert statement. So something like this. So there are 10 rows for this table, right? So I'm going to do is just make sure we check this is everything good. Data to be masked. Something like this. Okay, I can see all my 10 records here with the columns first name, last name, and hero name. So let's create a bunch of rows here. What I'm going to do is create row for one. It's been created, create row for two. For this one here, you just need to enter your username, right? So my username is this. So make sure you enter your own username. It's going to grant these rows to the user. Okay, that's done. Okay, what I'm gonna do here. Okay, the first thing what I'm gonna do is let's see. So if I switch to 4.1, right? For example here, 4.1. I don't have a warehouse, right? It says 4 does not have access to these items. Warehouse, database, schema. So let's grant all those database objects to 4.1, similar to 4.2, right? What I'm gonna do is the first thing I want you to do is you say grant, right? Grant usage. So I'm going to create a read only for both of them, right? We don't need to give, modify access or something like that to those two rows. So in order to give like a read only access, you say grant usage on database, right? Let's just start from the top. So we start from database, schema, and then after schema, we can say you give it, just say usage command on database, schema, warehouse, and we give it like a select command, which is a read command to all the tables, right? So we say grant users on database. So the database is called Frosty, right? Let me switch this to Okay, because it's 4.1. So of course, looking at F01, we cannot even see Frosty database, or we can't even not even see the warehouse. So let's just give it first the database, so Frosty to role 4.1, right? So if I just run this, okay, this is one mistake. So make sure you don't want to use or run this command under 4.1 because 4.1 does not have anything. So make sure you switch to account admin, right? So I'm just going to say use role, my bad here, use role account admin, right? So I'm going to do grant use on database Frosty to role 4.1. So I'm back to account admin. So of course, account admin has access to everything this year, right? Frosty, public, etc. So I'm just going to grant use of Frosty to role 4.1. So that means 4.1 has access to database, right? So I'm going to do the similar way to grant usage on schema. So I'm just going to say frosty.public, right? To role 4.1, right? So I'm just going to run this. Okay, now we know that this particular role has access to database and the schema called public. Now the last one. No, this is not the last one. Let's just give a warehouse first. So I'm just going to say on warehouse, let's say compute wh to role 4.1, run that, and then what I'm going to do for the last one is we have the database, we have the schema, the warehouse. Now we need to give the tables, right? So I'm going to do is grant. Instead of saying usage, we say select on Frosty, right? Public dot data to be masked, right? So I'm going to give this particular role 4.1 this table called data to be masked, right? To role 4.1. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is basically what you need to know in order to give someone the like a read-only type of access, right? So, if you just switch back to, let's say, use role 4.1, right? Something like this. Now I can see that 4.1 has access to compute underscore WH and also, let me see if it's not refresh. Oh, it says Frosty, right? Why is it not? Let me quickly see something. One has access to compute underscore WH, that's what we've given, right? This is the warehouse, granting usage of the warehouse. Database, I'm not sure why it's not. Let me quickly see something. Use role 4.1. Say use database Frosty. Okay, it has. On public, right? Yeah, that works. Public. And then what I'm going to do is just see the table, right? I'm just going to execute this bit here. All right. So yes, so I'm currently under 4.1. It has got access to this warehouse, compute WH, and it has access to here Frosty under public, right? I'm going to do this similar to the second user, right? So for that, similar to what we've got here, right? So what I'm going to do is, okay, let me see. So I'm just going to copy, I'm just going to copy this bit here and replace it to 4.2, right? So if you see here, I'm currently under the second user, right? The role called 4.2. I cannot see anything, right? I cannot see this Frosty database. I cannot see public. I can't even see the warehouses, right? So even looking at the warehouses, it's the warehouse. Okay, I cannot see any warehouses here, right? And I cannot see any data too, right? I don't have the database called Frosty under public. So let me quickly show you how to do that, similar to what we've done before. So I'm going to show you how it works. So first you say grant users in database Frosty to role 4.2. So I'll just execute this bit. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, just switch back to your account admin. Okay, let's just do this again. Grant users on database Frosty to role 4.2, right? So going back here, you see, if I just refresh this, I've got a database called Frosty, but I don't have the schema called public. So I'm just going to do go back to the script and execute the second line, right? Grant users on schema public to role 4.2. So once that's executed, going back to Snowflake, so I'm just gonna do is refresh, right? Look at this, yeah. If I just press refresh, you can see public now. So I've given the role to the database called Frosty and the schema called public, but we're not able to see the tables, right? So to the third line is given the warehouse, right? So going back to this, press on admin on warehouses. I see it says no warehouses, right? So what I'm gonna do is execute this third line here, grant user warehouse. Now going back to the warehouses, so if you just refresh, I can see compute underscore WH, right? And now going back to the last statement, which is, so you can see here, I've not given any tables here, right? I've not granted any tables to the role called 42. So I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to execute this, grant select. So once that's executed, going back to here, refresh. Not refresh yet, refresh in here. You can see tables. Now I can see data to be masked. So that's how it works, right? That's how you grant read only to any role that you want to give it to. For example, analyst role can have a read only access, right? So all you have to do, yeah, is just execute those 4 commands, right? So let me just quickly check if it's working. Usual for T, right? Just gonna see select from, let's say, this table here. Yes, I'll be able to see the data, right? Now, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to create object tagging, right? So the way I'm going to do this is, remember back on the question, we have something called higher ups be able to see the hero name and first name, and the one below, let's call it like low level or low tier, they be only to see the hero name, right? So the first thing I would do is just create a tag, right? So I'm just going to say create or replace tag. So we say, let's just call this hero name security level, right? Something like this. And then I'm going to say allowed values, right? I'm just creating an array, say low, comma, high, right? So let's execute this. Or because I'm currently under 40, okay, let me just quickly change it to account admin. Execute this. Okay. Now going back to account admin, I'm going to create something called tagging first, right? Object tags. So as we looked on my previous video, the way it works is you say create or replace. Let's just call this tag. Let's say hero. Let's say hero tag levels, right? Something like this. So I'm going to say allowed. Yeah, this is basically a keyword in order to create your tag, allowed values in Snowflake, and say something like low and high, right? So the reason why we do this is because if you see back on the question, the higher ups is be able to see the hero name first name, whereas the low is only see the hero name, right? Just gonna execute this. Okay, hero tag level. So I'm gonna say show tags like hero tag level. Yeah. So again, we have, looking at show tags like hero tag level, we can see when exactly the tag is created, the name of the tag, the database, under what database and schema has the tag been created, who actually created that tag is under the account admin role, and the allowed values. So allowed values, the reason why it's very important is because think of it this way, right? So if a company also want to tag certain data set to indicate their sensitivity level for security and compliance purposes, then the allowed values will be high, medium, and low, right? So by tagging data set with sensitivity level, the company can, let's say, enforce access control policies, ensure that sensitive data handled appropriately. And Another example, let's say another example could be, if you're working with, um, let's say for example, for the department, right? So you have an allowed values of HR, marketing, engineer team, you know, so you can be able to tag them or give us a label to a specific database objects, right? So this is why we use allowed values in here. Just make sure, okay, this particular tag called hero tag level has only those two values, right? So for example, even if I create my role mapping policy and I implement something called hero tag level allowed values to, let's say, medium, something like that, or any other value other than low and high, it won't be allowed to for me to create that tag because it's not giving as one of those allowed values. I can be only able to create those hero tag level under low or high, right? So this is what it works, right? So we have created those tag. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the masking policy, right? So looking back to this bit here, so if you just so looking for this bit here, this is with the use of tags and masking. We want to mask the first name and last name columns from data to be masked table. So we want the following. This is the role mapping policy that we have discussed about, right? So let's see. So the way we could create this is, the way we do it is, this is define the masking policy. So we say create or replace masking policy, right? Something like this. So say mask hero names, something like that. So we say as, so we give us as a string, so string, just call it val. So you have to give, let's say a parameter, right? So what are you passing? I'm going to pass a string column here, right? Well, string. So say returns string. So I'm just going to do that with the arrow sign. So I'm going to do this, define this properly, something like this, right? So just write this in one line. So create or replace masking policy. Just name your masking policy as mask hero names. As the value, we're going to give us a parameter as value string, and we would return a string, right? So because if you think about it, if you mask this as asterisk, your return value will be a string, right? Your asterisk will be a string value. You're not masking this as a number, so therefore we need to say returns a number, right? So we're going to say, okay, we create this masking policy, call it mask hero names, as the value of string, return string, right? Now, this is where you define your masking policy using the case when statement. So let's just quickly see how it actually works. So here it says, let's see. The first thing I would do is default user that has access can only see the hero name data unmasked. So when we say default user, that basically means it can be an account admin, it can be a sysadmin, any default roles, or even any other roles apart from these two, 4.1 and 4.2. So I would say, let's see. Okay, this would be, let's say, your end statement, right? So let's say, for example, you have case. Under the case statement, we'll have, when, right? So I'm just gonna say case when. Okay, leave the first one out. So let's just quickly see. This is gonna be your, if you think about conditional formatting, you have if, else, if, and then the last one, else. So I'm gonna keep this as your else statement. So let me see these two. Row 4.1 can only see hero name, first name. Row 4.2 can see the contents of the whole table. Okay, I'm just gonna say case when. Just say current role. Okay, let's just say current role is, let's say 4.1. But remember, it has mentioned here, the used masking policy should not use the role checking feature current role. So we can use something else called, the only thing that comes up to my mind is, you say something like is role in session, right? It says here verifies whether the, okay, it says verify whether the argument value. Okay, it basically says verifies this session here is role in session means, okay, I'm just going to set this to 4-1, right? That basically means if I'm currently under this role, what can this particular role see, right? I'm just going to say 4-1, let's say 4-1, let's see. It says here, role 4-1 can only see the hero name and first name. Let's see, what I'm going to do here is, okay. Okay, let me quickly think. Okay, this whole session 4-1 can only see the hero name and first name. So if I set, let's say, I think let me do, okay, before doing that, okay, because I want to get those tagging involved as well. 4-1, and let's see, 4-1 can see hero name, first name. So 4-1. Okay, let me do something here. Before doing the role map policy, it's gonna do something. Let's say, let's modify these columns, right? Because we have those tagging, right? So let's modify, because remember, we have created those tags, but we haven't applied those tags into the columns, right? The schema level. So what I'm gonna do here is to see auto table. Let me quickly do this part. First public dot data to be unmasked, right? I'm going to do, so the way it works is you say auto table, modify column. So I'm going to say, so we have, let me just go back to the table. It's going to say first name. I'm going to set first name set tag. So I'm going to set the tag on first name to be hero tag level to be low, something like this. And I'm going to do, say, comma, last name, set tag hero tag level to be your high, right? Okay, something like this. Okay, it works. So what am I doing here? Just bear in mind in the question, just go back to the top. It says, I think it's this part here. HR's asking for more personal touch to our business door and has requested that some staff should be able to see the first names of the superiors to connect on a more basic level, right? So they'll be only to see the first names on a more basic level, whereas the higher up should still be able to see everything, right? So that's important. The reason why is because we set the first name. So we created a tag and we applied the tag to first name to be low, and similar to the last name, we applied this hero tag level to the last name to be high. So remember, even if I just change this to something called medium or something, this will not work because our allowed tags, if you go back to this query here, you can only choose high and low. So similar to, let's say, if you're working for, if let's say the company is working for like indicating the sensitive level, going back to the example, each column can have different tags for, if it's a low, high, or medium severity level, for example, right? So there are some columns that, let's say, a HR department can see. So you can say, like, for example, modify column HR underscore first name set tag to equal to HR, right? So something like this, yeah, would say, okay, I'll be only, so let's say for that particular table, let's say the table consists of 10 columns. If you switch on to HR role, you'll be only to see those columns that are relevant to you, and the other columns are just automatically masked. Whether that's partial masking or full masking, it depends on the business, right? So this is why it's very important to have something like this, right? So, okay, having this, what I'm going to do is, instead of saying current role, we're not allowed to use the role checking feature. We say case when is role in session full one, and let's say, because remember, full one can see first name, but it's not allowed to see the last name, right? I'm going to say something like this. And system, say let's say system get tag tag on current, let's say current column. Let's just call this hero tag level, right? Equals low. Then we say val. So what does this do? Just bear in mind that if we're just going back to this table, just going to say this table here, right? Just re-execute this. If I switch to this particular role, I'll be able to see first name and of course hero name, but not the last name, right? So last name is completely masked. So if I switch to this role, I'll be able to see first name and hero name. So this bit here, in order to use tags onto masking policy, you say system $ get tag on current column. So here, I want to see the first name. So how I'm going to see the first name is you just say to set it to low, similar to this. Let me just do this as a lowercase. So set this to low. The reason why is this particular column has a label called low, which then means I'll be able to see the first name because we have given this tag to the first name column, right? So if I say something like this, hero tag level equals to low, that means, okay, there's a column that this particular row can see. Well, what is that column? It's first name because it's set up to low, right? So if I set this to high, for example, that means this particular row cannot see first name, but it can see last name and hero name. The first name will be completely masked, right? So that's the difference. But this is why it's very important to create your masking policy. Plus, you want to make sure you apply those tags into your columns as well, right? Something like this. So this bit here, val, is currently here, right? So whatever you've written here should be val here. So this val tells me that, okay, if I'm under this role and the hero tag level is low, which is first name, so that means I can see first name. So give us a value. That means I'll be able to see something. This basically val means, okay, I'll be able to see um, the value of the table or these rows, for example, right? So just give us this a name, right? So basically meaning that, okay, if I'm currently under this role and this is currently under first name, that means this particular role can see first name, but not the last name, because that's why you set to val, right? So val basically means I want to see the data, right? So for one, system get current column, which is first name, then val. So that means I want to see the data. Then the next one is okay, we have got the first name here. It says here for one can only see hero name as well, but we don't specify hero name in here. Basically, it tells me that here we want to mask the first name and last name columns only from our data to my mask table. So it didn't mention anything about the third column, right? So make sure like if you're applying tags, it's easier to, even if you read the sentence here, we want to mask the first and last name columns, and that basically gives you an indication, okay, I want to tag something, I want to give it as a label, right? So this is how I understood the question, right? Okay, we have done the first one here. So the next one is role for to can see the contents of the whole table. So I'm gonna do here is I think instead of saying I can do something like this, right? So session. Okay, what I'm gonna do is let's say similar to this, right? It's going to say when something like this, foo2 can see let's say can see this bit here as well, right? It says here role foo2 can see the contents of the whole table. So I'm going to say, okay, this row can see this bit here, the whole thing is first name, so it can see first name and the last name as well, right? But because these both are similar, right, in terms of the way it has been coded, so I'm just going to say something like this, right? So I'm going to say to or this role in session, say for 2 So I don't need this bit here, right? Because it's similar to this. So it means if you switch to this particular role, I can see the first name, right? Because you set the tag, I can see the first name. If I switch to 4.2, right, the second role, I can see the first name as well, right? So how do I set this to, because it says here, this particular role can see the contents of the whole table. So I'm going to do here is role in session, right? Something like this, 2, and I'm just going to say similar to this, to hi. Then I want to see the data. So instead of saying something like this, that means if you set to this, yeah, this is also a string because it returns a string, right? So this basically tells me that foo2, right, this second row, cannot see this particular hero tag level, which is high. So high is applied to last name. So it cannot see high because of the asterisk here. You're masking the data. You're basically masking last name to, let's say, 4 asterisks or something, right? You can just give a message here. You can just write anything. You can say masked or whatever, right? So even if I run this, when I've done my masking policy, if I switch to foo to the second row and check the last name column, those records of last name is going to say masked underneath. It's going to say masked for the whole record. So everything's going to say masked for this column here, right? So that's why I want to say, okay, this is masked. That means this particular row cannot see anything. So I want this second row to see the contents of the whole table. So I'm going to set this to VAL, right? That's all. So that basically means if I switch to foo2, right? So if you see this first statement, this role is role in session. Okay, if I'm currently under this role, I'll be able to see the first name because you say something like this, right? Then give it a value. That means not give us a value as in you give any value, but I want to see the existing record. And then you say the second statement, okay, the second role, I will be able to see this particular column as well. It says get tag concurrent column. So for me, I think, okay, what's this current column? So if I just go back to your, okay, it's set to high, which is similar to this. So it says last name. So I'll be able to see the last name, the first name, and hero name as well, right? Whole contents of the whole table. And then what I'm going to do here is else. I'm going to mask this, right? In order to mask this, let's say, going back to here, we have given, hold on, how many asterisks? So 6, right? So I'm just going to say something like this. So this is telling me, just going to end this. Okay, this is my masking policy done. So if I'm currently under any other role other than this first one and second one here, let's say I'm currently under account admin, it tells me that an account admin, say, for example, is the default user, it has access only to see the hero name data unmasked. So I can be able to see this last column, but both of them is going to be completely masked, right? So we'll just say, okay, I want to give this as those asterisks here, right? So if I set this to, let's say, VAL, so that means any other roles, yeah, account admin, sysadmin, security admin, can see everything literally, right? So you don't want to do that. So I'm going to say, give it like something like this, right? So I'm going to run this. And then just bear in mind, once you run your masking policy, let's say you, let's say your role mapping policy, this is not done yet. You want to, because you have created the masking policy, you want to apply this masking policy to the table. So once you have done creating your policy mapping, right, something like this, if you go back to here, just bear in mind that we have, created to tag, we have modified the tag, right? One thing missing is we need to set, because remember we use tagging here, right? So I'm going to do something like this. Alter tag, right? I'm just going to say, where is it? Hero tag level, right? set masking policy, right? Say something like this, say masking policy. I'm going to say set this masking policy to mask hero names. Okay, what did I just do here? Let me just do something like this. Okay, just bear in mind that in order to incorporate, you let's say your tag, right? Your tags, something like this, into your masking policy, you need to do something like this. Yeah, you say auto tag hero tag level, which is the name of the tag. I want to set the masking policy to this, so it will be applied basically. So first, what you do, you create a tag, right? So you create a tag, say allow values low and high, and after you did that is because obviously you want to mask the first name and last name columns. So what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to apply those tags with these columns here, right? Okay, let's say data to be masked, those first two columns has a label called low for first name and high for last name. And then what I'm going to do is create your masking policy. But once you create your masking policy and you have applied this particular command, get tag on current column, and you have implemented saying hero tag level low or high, you need to, the last statement, you need to say something like this. You need to apply your tag into this masking policy. So I'm just going to run this. So that's done. Now I'm going to do is check whether it's working, right? So first what I'm going to do is test out, right? So if you go back to the question, so it says use for account admin. I'm just going to say, I'm currently on account admin anyway, but I'm just going to copy for testing purposes, right? So I'm going to do that, select, start from, what's the table code? Data to be masked, right? Okay, so I'm currently under account admin. And if I run this particular statement, because we have applied, we have done the role mapping policy, we have applied the tag into this masking policy, right? As an account admin, if you see this, if you look deeply into this case event statement, I won't be able to see the first name, right? I won't be able to see the last name, but I'll be able to see the last column because we have not applied a tag for the last column. So I'm just going to run select start from data to be masked. So you can clearly see that, okay, the first name is completely masked, right? Which is this else statement, and last name is Zoe, because it doesn't say is role in session account admin, for example, right? And then hero name, because we have not applied any tag. So it's just keep like a safe place for an account admin to see the hero name, right? So because this masking policy is only applied to those two first columns, so this is working well, right? So if you go back to this, you can see this picture here. Account admin can not see first name, last name, but I can see the hero name. So going back to here, so I'm just going to say use role for one. Just going to say similar to this. Let's keep this here as well. Okay. It's going to switch to the role. It's going to see the data to be masked table. Now look at this here. It says role for one can only see the hero name and first name. So once I switch it back to 4.1, and if I select the table, I can see the first name and the hero name. Last name is completely masked. The reason why is look at the first statement here, right? So it says here, if you're currently under the first role and the system get tag on current column is the tag is low, which is first name, I want to see the value. This is what this is. This value is, just ask yourself a question. I want to see the value. So that's why you give VAL, right? So that basically means, okay, I got the first name and the hero name, right? Now, going back to, let me just quickly see if it's actually right. Yes, here, 4.1, I'm going to say, I'll be able to see first name and the hero name. And last name is completely masked. Now the last one is just say use role for 2, select from data to be masked, right? So if you switch it back to this role here, I'll be able to see the whole content of the table, right? If you just go for the last picture here, I'll be able to see the whole content of the whole table. The reason why is, look at the first statement here. If you're currently under, because that's the or statement, right? Currently either of them. So if it's currently under the second row, I want to see the first column. right? Because we have given this hero tag level as the first column here, right? Too low. So I want to see the value, right? I want to see the value of the or contents of that column. Now the second one here. If I'm still currently under the second row, I want to see the second column here, right? And give us a value. So that basically means I want to see those two columns. So this is how it works, right? So I think due to testing this, everything works well. So I think that's all for the question, right? So yeah, okay, that's all. So what did we learn from this is just going back to the worksheet. So what we did is we created a table, we have inserted 10 records in, we have created 2 rows. So we understood how to create a select only or like a read only um, statement. So all you have to do is just use those 4 statements here. You want to grant a database, right, to this particular role. We have looked into how to grant the schema, the warehouse, and the read-only select, right? So if you want, let's say, a particular role to have access to modify these tables, so using like delete operation, update operation, you don't want to use this statement here. You say all privileges, for example, right? So this is an example of how you create a read-only, let's say read-only statement to a particular role that needs read-only access, right? So we have looked into that. So we looked into how to create tags. So how this particular Snowflake keyword works, allowed values. So remember, if you're working for, let's say, a company that cares about, looking into sensitivity level, you can create tags on low, medium, high. So this tag only allows you to enter low and high, right? So the reason why we said that is, if you read the question, it says we want to mask the first name and last name columns. So we want to, let's say, after setting this one in, after you create your tags, you have to modify these columns. You want to give us a label, right? So how do you give this label to these columns is using this statement here. So we want to alter this table. So we say modify column. We want to give the label low to first name. We want to apply the label high to last name. And then using that, we able to create a row masking policy, right? So remember, we say create or replace masking policy. You give the name of the masking policy, and you want to give us any string here, right? Just to make sure this val will say I want to see the contents of the column, right? Because it returns string, because you see here a value is in case it's going to be string. If it says number, you can set this as a number, right? So it doesn't make sense. So you can set this as a number here. So, but we want to give this a string because, of course, we want to mask. We want to use, let's say, full masking as asterisks, right? So we have seen how instead of using current role, you can use is role in session, right? This session here, I'm going to say something like this, right? So you can use current role as well, but of course the challenge says not to use a role checking feature, right? And then we also learn how do you apply this into your role masking policy. So we say something called system dollar get tag on current column, right? Set it to low. So this whole thing is say and first name basically, right? So it's using tags, right? So similar to this. Because it's set to high, that means it's set to last name. And then we say else, okay, I want to just say, just mask the whole column, right? So I'm just going to say something like this. And then once that's done, you need to apply this tag, let's say hero tag level that we have created, onto the masking policy. So how to do that is just saying auto tag hero tag level set masking policy to this name here, right? So that's an indication that okay, let's say that's an indication that okay, you have applied the tag into your masking policy in order to, making sure that whenever you read the table, depending on the role you're switched onto, you can read the table, right? Using partial masking or full masking. And then we have checked or did some testing on how it works. So yeah, this is the relationship between how to use tags and masking. So hope you understood using this session here. So I advise you guys to, keep practicing on using tags and masking policy, maybe a different type of scenario. So you could use something if you're working for, let's say, a data that requires again sensitivity level, or you can use data like a company type of data, let's say allow values to different departments, right? You can create a tax on department, allow values to, like, let's say HR, marketing, engineer, whatever, right? So just to play around with this, right? And of course, make sure you play around with, how to use this type of case when statement, right? So make sure you keep practicing this. If anything you see here doesn't make sense to you, please put down in comments below and I'll be able to assist you more further. So for now, thank you for watching this video. Hope you learned something new and I'll see you on the next video.